So it's Tuesday, January 16th. I'm on my way to the White House press briefing. I hope I make it. I'm cutting it kind of close because the briefing is at 3:30 and it's now 1:30 and I'm still in Baltimore, and I need to be at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is exactly 2 hours away. When you include the driving, the finding a parking spot, and jumping on the train from Columbia Heights, where I parked my car, to get to the White House and through security and all that good stuff. So anyway, it's the first day, I believe, that Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, is going to be facing journalists since the day of since the ish hit the storm, so to speak, with regard to the president's asshole comments. And I have a feeling that the press briefing room will be jam-packed today, and that's why I'm rushing, because I want my opportunity to ask my question too, as the only African White House correspondent, as far as I'm aware. I don't think there's another one. There's Olu, who's obviously of Nigerian background, who writes for the Root.com. He's the White House correspondent for the Root.com, but I believe that Olu is American born, so he's of African heritage, but not African, like in the same way as me. He's not African born. So I'm going to try to take video of not just Sarah's presentation or responses, but a little bit of me as well. My intention for my YouTube channel really is for it to be a behind the scenes, so meaning a channel where I get to show the day-to-day experiences, life of myself, an immigrant, a Kenyan, an African immigrant in the United States, a White House correspondent, which in itself is obviously exciting, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what your race, creed, nationality might be, but also about the existence of my existence in the U.S., life in the United States for a black man, for an immigrant, for a Kenyan man, and everything that comes with. I got inspired to start my channel, interestingly, because despite being a journalist, I really stopped watching pretty much all news sometime last year. I had spent a lot of time in traveling in 2016, and I came back in March 2017, and I stopped watching all U.S. news at that point because it was just so toxic. And I found myself watching like YouTube videos because I stopped watching U.S. news. I watched a little bit of Kenyan news during the Kenyan election cycle, but that too was just as toxic, and so I got fed up of watching Kenyan news as well. Thank you. I can't believe somebody actually let me into their lane, because that doesn't happen often. Here, when you indicate, people speed up to prevent you from entering their lane. It's very interesting. Anyway, so I stopped watching Kenyan news, I stopped watching American news, and I don't really have much of an interest in stuff that's on TV. So I found myself perusing YouTube, and I came across all these different YouTube channels primarily of couples. You know, there's like transgender couples, gay couples telling their coming out stories, their stories of finding themselves, their stories of their journeys of acceptance with their families, of themselves, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting, like, you know, there's all these reality TV shows essentially that people are creating of themselves, and I found it really interesting and oftentimes inspiring. You know, like all the ones that I've watched so far are of very young couples, so young kids, but they're inspiring because these are young people. I mean, essentially young or not so young, it doesn't matter, but these are channels of people just living their everyday life and showing their everyday life, and people are interested to see what that's like, for different reasons, I guess, but essentially because, you know, you get to peek into other people's lives. I guess it's interesting. We human beings are sort of we are voyeurs. We like to see what other human beings are doing. We root for people. We root for them. We want to see them do well, and we want to see how they live their lives, because I guess that is an inspiration for ourselves in navigating our own lives, like just seeing how other people deal with relationships, with breakup, with heartache, with heartbreak, with careers, with their ambitions. You know, I guess that's why people are intrigued by this sort of thing. And so I thought, you know, I would do the same. I wanted to create a YouTube channel showing another side, you know, a side of the life of an African immigrant in the United States, and I guess the fact that I do something very intriguing as a White House correspondent, I thought made it, you know, it made me want to share my story, because, you know, and because it's easy for me to post on my social media, you know, my titles, White House correspondent, and all that looks fancy and sounds fancy and everything, but the behind the scenes shows what that entails. Hopefully that's what I intend for it to be. I intend for it to show what it took for me to get to being here, what it takes for me to continue to do it, because like for me, I'm a freelancer. I'm a freelance White House correspondent, which means that, for example, whenever I travel with the president, I haven't traveled with the current president, but I traveled with the last president. I traveled to Cuba, to France for the climate conference. I traveled to Cuba for the first ever trip by an American president since the Cuban embargo. So, you know, it's been interesting, and I want to show that. I want to show what it takes for me to do those things. It involves a lot of sacrifice. It involves juggling a lot of plates in the air, because, you know, I'm a property owner, for example. I you know, I have to finance my indulgence in freelance journalism, and the way I do that is by being a property owner, because my freelance journalism so far hasn't resulted in it being making a living for me. These people in Baltimore really can't drive. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to do with my YouTube channel. So here goes. Look forward to talking to you guys more and showing you more. Thank you.